We have put sanctions against Russian Federation. Serbia is not thinking about it. They didn't distance themselves from neither from Milosevic nor from Putin. So it's not easy for us. I want to normalize.
But of course, Prime Minister, a key precondition set by the EU for your country to move forward has been the conclusion of the normalization agreement with Serbia. Recently, the US and the EU have come down very hard on your country, blaming you for provoking a crisis and escalating the situation in northern Kosovo by forcefully installing Albanian mayors. And measures have been adopted against your country in that regard, and I quote, that's what the EU said, because of Kosovo's inability to take considerable steps for de-escalation. At a time when Europe for 18 months now has been preoccupied with the war in Ukraine, is this not the right time to seize the opportunity but also de-escalate the situation? Now is the time more than ever, isn't it?
Yes, I fully agree. We need de-escalation, we need to ease tensions, and it's around 2 months now that in northern municipalities of Kosovo there has been no violent protests nor incidents. We have decreased twice by 25% the presence of Kosovo police in these municipal buildings, and I look forward to have early elections in the northern municipalities, and I hope that we're going to have a fair and open campaign for free and democratic elections. We need the help of international community, but on the other hand, I believe that people understood in Kosovo that those who integrate, they live better. So integration is something which is beneficial for the citizens, but at the same time, we as government are there to ensure equal rights for all. We have done so very much when it comes to economy, for example. In first 6 months of this year, budget revenues increased by 15.8%. In Kosovo, people pay more taxes, and this also shows fidelity to the state. And now we have had a doubling of both exports and FDI. So economy, which is doing better in Kosovo, especially in these last 2 years, helps integration.
The escalation is, of course, what we're talking about. And the same thing, of course, Prime Minister Bërnabiqit, goes for your country. The EU has made very clear that the completion of the Belgrade-Pristina dialogue is a precondition for your country's EU membership talks to advance. Now, I already mentioned that EU and the US have criticized Kosovo for the situation in northern Albania, but at the same time, there are top US and EU lawmakers who say the West is too soft on Serbia when it comes to easing Kosovo tension and is not putting enough pressure on your country. Now, you both want to be part of the European family. You want to be both part of the European Union to be adopted as a member. These escalations are hurting not just Kosovo, but also your country. Can we expect some positive steps also from your country moving forward?
Well, firstly, I have to say that for me, it's one country. There are no two countries. There are not both countries. Kosovo, as the so-called Republic of Kosovo, is not internationally recognized country. It's not a member of the UN. And yes, obviously, I doubt that it will become part of the EU, at least until there is a 5 non-recognizers. I would say that the normalization, which is in the interest of both Belgrade and Pristina, which is in the interest of both Serbs and Albanians, which is in the interest of the entire region, is something that is very high up on the list of our priorities. The normalization starts with the Brussels Agreement, signed in April 2013, so more than 10 years ago, as the first agreement on normalization between Belgrade and Pristina, co-signed by the European Union and the EU High Representative. The only one and only thing that Pristina needed to do in accordance with the Brussels Agreement as the first agreement on normalization is the establishment of the Community of Serb Municipalities. Almost 11 years later, there is everything but the establishment of Community of Serb Municipalities. And Mr. Kurti says that the Brussels Agreement does not exist for him. Let me remind you once again, that is the first agreement on normalization, that it needs to be implemented. And the European Union is the guarantor for the full implementation of that agreement. So what we are waiting for is the Community of Serb Municipalities. Everything else, we live for peace and stability. It is in our vested interest to keep and preserve peace and stability in the region. Thank you.
Prime Albin Kurti, 10 seconds reply.
Support in Kosovo for European Union is 94%, in Serbia is like 35%. We have put sanctions against Russian Federation. Serbia is not thinking about it. They didn't distance themselves from neither from Milosevic nor from Putin. So it's not easy for us. I want to normalize relations, and I would immediately do that, for example, if my neighbor would have been Czech Republic. But normalization of relations with Serbia are much more difficult. Yeah. It can happen because we need to implement this basic treaty that President of Serbia and myself agreed in Brussels. But normalization in psychology means absence of confusion between reality and fantasy. And that's another register where I cannot contribute, unfortunately.
Prime Minister Plenković, already